In the cold silence of space, a forgotten fleet emerges from the shadows. Humanity, long thought extinct, returns with vengeance burning in their veins. Once shattered by the Galactic Assembly's brutal strike on Earth, they've rebuilt in secret, forged in exile, and now they strike the unthinkable, Talvarin, the heart of the enemy's power. But what begins as a mission of revenge uncovers a deeper truth, one that could ignite a war to reshape the galaxy forever. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. The stars watched in silence as Earth burned. Commander Silas Rowan stood at the edge of the command deck, his eyes fixed on the glowing display of the planet's final moments. Fires raged across continents. Oceans boiled. A planet once alive with music, laughter, and dreams had been reduced to a smoldering shell. He didn't speak. None of them did. Around him, the crew of the Lumen held their breath, many with tears they didn't dare to shed. Their home was gone, wiped away by a decision made far above their heads, by beings who feared them. The Galactic Assembly, a coalition of ancient, powerful civilizations, had labeled humanity unstable and dangerous. They cited humanity's unpredictable innovation, their drive to overcome limits, and their refusal to fall into line. Silas had once believed in peace, in unity. But when the Assembly's judgment came, it came like a storm, ruthless and fast. A coordinated orbital strike, no warning, no second chances. In under an hour, Earth went silent. The Lumen, an off-world colony ship orbiting Jupiter at the time, had survived only because no one thought it worth destroying. Too small, too remote. But Silas knew better. They were survivors now, carriers of the last spark. That was 15 years ago. Now, Silas stood not as a soldier, but as a leader of scattered remnants. Survivors had hidden across the galaxy, on mining moons, inside asteroid fields, and in quiet corners of space no one else wanted. Every human left had one thing in common, a memory of what was stolen, and a quiet whisper in their heart that echoed the same word, return. On the edge of the Norris Belt, a massive asteroid field, the human fleet had grown in secret. The Lumen had become its command hub, surrounded by makeshift shipyards and outposts that bore no flag, no country, just one purpose. The people here weren't warriors by nature. They were builders, scientists, explorers, farmers, and some, yes, soldiers. But above all, they were human. And humans didn't vanish. They adapted. Technician Amira Noel walked through the Lumen's core chamber, running final checks on the power grid. She was young, only a child when Earth fell, but her mind was sharp. Her parents had been engineers in one of the hidden colonies before a raid had taken them. She grew up fast, surrounded by machines, guided by the voices of others who had lost, even more. "You okay?" asked Jasper Vorn as he leaned in the doorway, a smirk on his face, grease still smeared across his cheek. He was a pilot, the kind who grinned at danger and flew like he had no plans for tomorrow. She gave him a tired look. "Define okay," she muttered. He chuckled, walking beside her. "Fleet launches in 72 hours. You should try sleeping before that." Amira didn't answer. She was staring at the console, watching the power reading stabilize. Somewhere deep in her chest, hope stirred. They were ready. In the war room, Silas reviewed the final intel reports. Scout teams had returned with maps of assembly patrol routes. Cloaked probes had slipped past outer defenses. They had studied, waited, and prepared. The first target would not be a world, but a symbol, a communications tower built into the rings of a gas giant. Taking it wouldn't turn the tide, but it would say one thing clearly: humanity was not a memory. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. The door opened and Admiral Cassian Vale stepped in. A man with quiet strength and calm eyes, he had been a fleet captain before the fall. Now, he was the architect of the fleet's rebirth. "Everything's in place," Cassian said. "We strike in 3 days. Once we do, there's no going back." Silas looked at the star chart above them. Thousands of stars blinked back like scattered hopes. "We never had the option to go back," he replied. "Only forward." Outside, the fleet shimmered in the distance. Sleek cruisers, light-speed scouts, heavy carriers, all built in silence, with scraps and stolen knowledge, human brilliance layered with whatever alien tech they could reverse engineer. Some ships bore the names of lost cities: Athens, Nairobi, Lima. Others had new names, dreamed up by children born in exile. That night, the stars felt closer than usual. Across the fleet, people paused in their work. They looked up, not with fear, but with something else: resolve. Amira stood on the outer deck, her fingers resting on the metal rail, watching the quiet glow of the asteroid field. Jasper joined her, saying nothing for once. "Do you think they remember us?" she asked quietly. Jasper thought for a moment. "I think they hope we don't." Silas stood in the bridge, the command center dim, lights low. The words he had, written and rewritten in his head, finally came to his lips. "They thought erasing Earth would erase us," he said softly to his crew. "But you can't erase a flame by blowing on it. You just scatter the embers, and embers light new fires." And so the first step began, not with a roar, not with vengeance, but with quiet motion. Shadows slipped through space, ships lit engines for the first time, and humans once thought extinct turned their gaze back to the stars, not to ask for forgiveness, but to remind the galaxy they were still here. The cold silence of deep space was broken by the soft hum of 1,000 engines. Hidden inside the dense clouds of the Norix Nebula, humanity's forgotten fleet was preparing for war. Ships of every shape and size floated quietly, their hulls reflecting the faint light of distant stars. This was not a navy built in grand dry docks with banners and songs. It was built in caves and hollowed-out asteroids in silence. But each ship carried with it a shared memory of a planet lost and a promise not yet fulfilled. Admiral Cassian Vale stood at the center of the command chamber aboard the Solstice, his hands folded behind his back. He was not a loud man, nor one for speeches, but when he spoke, his crew listened. Cassian had been a freighter captain during the last days of Earth. He had watched cities fall from orbit, helpless to stop what was happening below. Since then, he had become something more than a leader. He was the voice of a people who had been told to disappear. Around him, the fleet's commanders watched a holographic map shift and pulse. Blue lights showed their ships, spread out in stealth formations. Red dots marked known outposts of the Galactic Assembly. At the center of the projection was their target, Talvaran, a fortress world built into the rings of a gas giant. Its shipyards built vessels for the assembly, and its communications center kept hundreds of systems connected. Taking it would cut the assembly's voice and shout humanity's return. "We strike in 7 days," Cassian said quietly, not to destroy but to be heard. Lieutenant Zira Kairos watched from the corner. She was tall, quiet, and sharp as a blade. Zira had once served as a reconnaissance analyst in the outer colonies. Now she led the fleet's scout division. She had spent the last 5 months mapping Talvaran's defense systems, placing hidden beacons to help the fleet navigate the deadly debris field surrounding it. When the meeting ended, Cassian pulled her aside. "You're sure about the relay patterns?" he asked. Zira nodded. "We'll have a 10-minute window where their patrols overlap and their scanning range drops. It's not much, but it's enough." Cassian gave a rare smile. "Then it will be enough." Elsewhere in the fleet, deep inside the engineering deck of the Lumen's Edge, Timo Solon adjusted the lens on his visor and tightened the bolts on a new cloaking module. Timo was a miracle worker, or at least that's what people called him. He was young, messy, and always carried 3 tools in each pocket. But he had turned human junk into something that could hide entire cruisers from assembly sensors. His secret wasn't just brains, it was obsession. Every time he worked, he heard his father's voice, the last recording left after the fall of their moon colony. "Make something that matters, Timo," the message had said. "Something that saves, more than just you." He wiped sweat from his forehead and slid the new module into place. One step closer, he whispered. As the final days before the mission passed, the fleet grew quiet. Crews ran drills, engineers ran diagnostics, pilots ran simulations. There were no parties, no loud celebrations, just focus. The kind of focus that came from knowing the galaxy still believed you were dead, and you were about to remind them you weren't. Cassian stood alone in the observation dome the night before the launch. The stars felt closer here, above the eye, decks and steel. He remembered Earth, not just the cities or the sky, but the people, the ones who refused to give up, even in their last moments. This mission wasn't just strategy. It was a message in the form of movement. In the quiet, Zira approached. She had brought an old photograph, faded at the edges. It showed her family standing in front of a small workshop on Mars. "I used to think we'd never have a chance," she said, voice low. "But now, we're close." Cassian nodded. Close doesn't win wars, but it gives us something we haven't had in a long time. Hope. Zira tucked the photo back into her coat. "Then let's make sure we don't waste it." When the hour came, the fleet began to shift. Ships aligned into attack formations. Communication relays activated in bursts of coded light. Engines powered up silently, cloaking fields holding strong. From a distance, it looked like stars shifting, ever so slightly. But for those on board, it felt like the start of something much bigger than any of them. On the solstice, Cassian's voice came through every speaker, calm and steady. "This is not revenge," he said. "This is not about proving our worth to those who tried to erase us. This is about reminding the galaxy what it means to be human, to survive, to rebuild, to rise when others expect you to fall. Talvaran is our first step, not our last." Across the fleet, people listened. Some nodded. Some whispered quiet prayers. Some, like Timo, just kept working, knowing that every part he tightened, every wire he connected played a role in the bigger picture. The ships slipped forward, disappearing into the darkness, ghosts carrying fire. They moved not with anger, but with purpose. And as they approached Talvaran, a quiet thought ran through them all. We were never gone, just waiting. And now the waiting was over. The first explosion lit up space like a sunrise in the void. Captain Lena Voss gripped the controls of her fighter, the Skyblade, as she dove through a hail of enemy fire. Around her, hundreds of ships burst into motion. The human fleet had arrived at Talvaran, and the element of surprise was theirs. Explosions bloomed across the planet's orbital ring, where the Galactic Assembly's shipyard spun silently just hours before. Now, they were battlegrounds. "Squadron 7, on me," Lena shouted into her comms, her voice calm but urgent. "Target the eastern turret grid. Take out their eyes." Her squadron, known as the Black Spires, followed her lead without hesitation. These weren't just pilots, they were survivors like her. Trained in hidden simulators, shaped by loss, and driven by something far stronger than anger. Purpose. Talvaran was more than just a communications hub. It was a symbol, a place the Assembly believed untouchable. But no place was truly safe. Not when the forgotten children of Earth had learned to fly in the shadows. Below the chaos in space, the gas giant Talvaran swirled in hues of orange and violet. The ring that circled it was filled with stations, turrets and defensive satellites, all now turning, waking, responding to the threat that had appeared from nowhere. On the flagship Solstice, Admiral Cassian Vale stood behind the tactical display, arms folded. "Status?" he asked. Nail Thorne, the fleet's chief strategist, answered without turning his head. "Outer defenses are reacting slower than predicted. Our cloaked drones disrupted their early warning systems. Voss's squadron has already taken out 2 turret arrays." Cassian gave a slight nod. "Then we keep the pressure. Begin Phase 2. Get Rhine's swarm into position, out past the main assault." Dashiell Rhine guided his network of remote drones from the control deck of the Phantom Reach. His hands flew over the interface, directing small, agile craft toward power relays, sensor hubs, and data towers. Unlike Traditional pilot's Dash never left his chair. But his presence was everywhere. His drones flew like a storm, silent and unstoppable. He smiled faintly as one of his units slipped through a maintenance vent and planted a charge on the central sensor array. Tick, tick, he whispered. Boom. The blast took out a portion of the orbital ring and left a gap in the enemy's scanning field. Lena saw the opening and darted through it, her squadron behind her. Clear path to relay core, she called. Out. Moving in. As the black spires punched forward, enemy fighters scrambled to intercept. Sleek silver ships belonging to the assembly zipped through the battlefield. Their tech was older but reliable, and their pilots were many. Dogfights exploded across the ring, spirals of fire and steel carving lines through the stars. Lena twisted her ship sideways, dodging a blast by inches. Stay tight. Don't chase, stick to the objective, she barked. Her team responded with perfect coordination, weaving through wreckage and flak until the relay core, a giant station pulsing with communication nodes, came into view in the surface of Talvaran's orbital platform. Ground teams had already landed. Clad in dark suits and armed with gear built from both human design and alien tech, the infiltration team advanced quickly through service corridors. Their goal was to plant a virus into the assembly's central data stream, a digital fire that would spread across systems and blind the enemy's network. Inside the main control chamber, 2 officers from the assembly shouted into malfunctioning comms, confusion written across their faces. They're everywhere, one said. They're not even on the charts. How did they? Then the virus hit. Screens blinked out. Lights flickered. Defense systems stuttered. On every deck, chaos began to bloom. And in that chaos, the humans pressed harder. Cassian's voice echoed over the fleet-wide channel. All units, move to secure the relay core, no destruction. We need that station intact. Nail Thorne turned from his screen. If we can hold the core for 10 minutes, the virus will take full effect. They'll lose coordination across the sector. Then we hold it, Cassian replied. Lena's fighters provided air support as dropships released more soldiers onto the ring's outer decks. One by one, the assembly's units fell back, unable to hold their lines. Talvaran wasn't just losing, it was collapsing. But then came the unexpected. A new signal pulsed from the far side of the ring. Assembly reinforcements, 2 capital ships emerging from hyperspace. The ground rumbled, the sky darkened, and the tide of battle threatened to turn. Cassian saw it. Prepare the Solstice's main batteries, aim for their engines. If they join the fight, we're in trouble. On the bridge, tension rose. Time was running out. In the relay core, the virus had almost finished its job. The infiltration team leader gave the signal. We're set. Extraction point in 2 minutes. Lena watched the enemy cruisers turning, preparing to fire. Black, spires, cover the core. We hold until they're clear. The next few minutes felt like hours. Explosions rocked the station. Fighters swerved. Missiles streaked. Shields flared. One of Lena's wings took a direct hit. She didn't break focus. And then the message came through. Virus fully integrated, comm systems disabled, core secured. Cassian exhaled. All units pull back, return to formation. As the humans retreated, the assembly forces, blinded, broken and confused, didn't pursue. They couldn't. Their vision was gone, their voice silenced. From the edge of the battlefield, the fleet turned one last time, not to taunt, not to boast, but to show the galaxy that humanity was no ghost. They were real. They were here. And Talvaran was only the beginning. The moment the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace above Talvaran, everything changed. For decades, the Galactic Assembly believed Earth's children were scattered, broken, and forgotten. But now they had returned, not with words but with ships, fire, and purpose. Talvaran, the shining ring city that orbited a vast gas giant, was one of the Assembly's strongest outposts. It was home to military factories, intelligence networks, and a key relay station that connected dozens of systems. And now, it was humanity's first target. Captain Lena Voss led her squadron, the black spires in tight formation. Her ship, the Skyblade, darted through space like a shadow with wings. Her eyes stayed sharp, her mind calm. She had trained for this moment her entire life. As a child, she had escaped one of the outer colonies just before it was wiped out. She had never forgotten that day. And now she was here to make sure the galaxy didn't forget either. "All squadrons, check in," Lena said into her comms. "Spire 4 ready. Spire 6, locked and loaded. Spire 7, standing by." The voices came quickly, each one steady and sure. These weren't rookies. They were survivors, chosen and trained from hidden colonies across the galaxy. Their ships weren't the most beautiful, but they were fast, tough, and armed with both human and alien tech. They didn't have numbers. What they had was determination. From the command ship Solstice, Admiral Cassian Vell gave the signal. "Phase 1 is go. All wings. Begin attack runs. Remember, we're not here to destroy Talvarin. We're here to take control." As soon as his words ended, the human fleet surged forward like a wave. Fighters broke into groups targeting the ring's defense turrets and sensor towers. Explosions flared in the cold dark, scattering sparks across the stars. On the ground, Talvarin's defenses were waking up. Alarms screamed through control rooms. Turrets spun, locking onto incoming ships. Enemy fighters launched from hangars, racing to meet the intruders. But they were already too late. Lena and her squadron hit the first defense ring hard. Laser blasts zipped through space. Explosions rocked the structure. Her team flew like dancers through a storm, dodging incoming fire with impossible precision. "Target the comm tower on Sector 9, she ordered. "If we blind them, they can't call for help." The fighters shifted course instantly. It was a risky move, flying close to the ring's surface where enemy fire was thick. But Lena knew it was the only way. Meanwhile, on the far side of the battlefield, Dashiell Rhine sat inside the drone operations center aboard the Phantom, Reach. His eyes flicked between dozens of screens, fingers tapping out commands. His drones, small, fast, and nearly invisible, were already deep inside the enemy's outer network. "Drone 7, plant the charge. Drone 12, take out that radar dish," he said calmly. His drones moved like ghosts, slipping through access tunnels and vents. One by one, they disrupted power nodes, opened access doors, and placed explosives where they would hurt the most. "Relay connection at 30%, he reported to Admiral Vale. "Virus is almost in." "Good work," the Admiral replied. "Just keep them from seeing us coming." Inside the ring's main station, confusion was spreading. Officers shouted over each other. Systems went dark without warning. Data streams slowed to a crawl. "They're inside our systems," one of them shouted. "Shut the external links." But it was too late. Zira Kairos, leading a small infiltration team on the surface of the ring, moved through the narrow corridors with quiet speed. They had landed silently using cloaked drop pods. Now they were in position to complete the most important part of the mission, uploading a virus that would tear through the assembly's communication web like fire through dry leaves. "Keep watch," Zira said, connecting her device to the control panel. The screen blinked. The virus began to spread. Back in space, Lena's fighters were under heavy fire. The enemy had recovered enough to launch counterattacks. Laser beams sliced through space. A nearby explosion rocked her ship. "Spire 6 is hit," someone shouted. "Get them clear," Lena responded quickly. "We're almost done. Hold the line." Her fingers moved fast across her controls. She locked onto an incoming cruiser and let loose a string of plasma bolts. The ship took damage but kept coming, and then suddenly all enemy fire stopped. Inside the command ship, Nail Thorne, the fleet's strategist, leaned forward. "It's done. The virus worked. Their systems are collapsing." On the station, screens turned to static. Control towers lost power. Enemy fighters turned in confusion, some drifting helplessly as their guidance failed. Admiral Vale gave the final order. "All units, secure the station. Do not destroy it. Talvarin is now under our control." Lena breathed out slowly. The worst was over. For now, her team had survived. The mission had succeeded. The fleet moved in to take control of the ring. Dropships landed and teams spread across the station, locking down systems and offering surrender terms to stunned assembly officers. No one had expected this. No one had thought the humans could strike this hard. Later that night, as the stars blinked quietly over Talvarin, the fleet gathered in silence. A single message was sent out across the galaxy. Talvarin has fallen. Humanity has returned. And somewhere, far away, the assembly listened and trembled.